It's a late kind of day.
I see ya.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. It is another Thursday, right?
It is Thursday. It's Blur Day. I can't even remember what day it is anymore. Totally.
Richard Ropa's little bracelets, I think.
Blur Day thing.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we were saying earlier, if anybody would like to jump in and be on video today, if they've got questions, we're trying to do this somewhat open forum today because, well, there's just a lot of questions and such out there. So if you're watching from Facebook, you can ask questions there. If I put the link in, you can join, or you can join in here and ask questions. And Linda, how has your week been?
It's been good. I got a question. How come I turn the volume down on my phone and then when I go into Facebook, it comes back up on its own? That's not a question. I don't know why it does that.
Oh, I don't know.
It does it by itself. No, my week's been pretty good. Busy because we just had a client that we've moved from one platform to the other. So there's a lot of training, really, really, really busy. And it's been good though, because it's fun to watch people learn QuickBooks and find out how much easier it is than learning the old program that they had before, which is not that easy.
Don't hate on QuickBooks Desktop.
Not it's not QuickBooks Desktop. It's law firm software.
Oh.
They're not coming from QuickBooks Desktop. That's a lot easier than coming from, no. This is coming from like Juris. So totally different. So what have you been up to? You've been doing kind of nothing all week, right?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, some of the people we already know. Everybody do us a favor in the chat. Tell us where you are chiming in from, because we're going to do a little bit of stuff with kind of cover some of the stuff we did through workers' comp this week. And if I've got some details on specific states, I can try to pull it up and make it a little bit more unique that way. And on top of that, tell us something positive about your week. Share something positive about your week. We'd love to hear something. So
John Carlos here. And
may snow. Are you kidding me, John?
What? How could it snow? Wow.
It's like 83 degrees in my house right now, and you're talking about snow.
Snow. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm glad I don't live in New England anymore, because that's what they say about the New England weather. You don't like it, wait a minute.
So Greg says there's a ringtone volume and a media, he's right, and a media volume separately. So if you just do the volume on the ringtone on the side, that would drop it down, but your audio, you have to actually get into the media and then.
Too much work.
Too much work, yeah.
Too much work.
So that's okay. And then, so we've got from Texas as well. What else we got here, Linda? New York. So wait, it's just crazy to me that there's literally like all this snow. I guess I'm just living in a bubble. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, we do kind of, because we have summer for seasons, but yeah. Which is cool, but yeah. And they had like 60 degrees last week, because I saw a lot of pictures of people out in the parks and stuff like that. So, and now it's going to snow. And the following week will be 90.
So one of the things I covered, I did this week, and we thought it would be good to just touch base on it just a little bit, was a presentation on workers' compensation insurance. Really focusing around the idea of like how you can try to help save small businesses some money, some cash flow. And of course, if we've got some other questions that people wish to ask, we are welcome to take those questions. Otherwise, I will show the stuff. Hey, Kelly, it's good to see you as well. And Craig is asking, would you rather have snow or murder hornets?
Snow.
No. So hold on a second here. Sun gets rid of COVID, snow gets rid of murder hornets. Can it snow in sunny weather?
Mm-mm.
Oh, well. Shannon, good to see you as well. So the premise of this is, and I'm not going to go through the whole presentation because I don't think everybody needs to see that stuff. I created an example, like, well, fake policy, if you will. So now I've got it all set up. I'll share my screen here.
I have to say, when you started telling me about the topic,
yeah,
I was thinking, when you start talking about the fact that some policies could be turned off if people shut
Yeah.
down and had no payroll. That never occurred to me. So I actually reached out to some of my clients that I knew had closed down, like a hair salon, and said, hey, what are you doing? Keep an eye on this. This might happen. And, but then you showed me this, which was fascinating. The math.
So, yeah, the quick catch up of it. And again, wanted to share just in case people didn't hear about this. The quick catch up with all this is the insurance industry has been obviously going to bat with legislation on what should be done, shouldn't be done for like COVID, and more specifically around workers' compensation insurance. How does that stuff play out? So like if you have an employee that is sick with COVID and then other people were to get sick, would that be a workers' comp claim because they got sick at work? And it's really tough to kind of prove for sure that that's exactly where it came from. But it did start me down a rabbit hole more of like, okay, well, this is one of those expenses that can vary and can possibly be a way to help save money for a business owner. And what I mean by that, I don't know how many people actually put in the chat would be great if you have clients that are currently on like direct billing policies with workers' comp versus pay as you go. Because if you're on direct billing, this becomes a situation that, direct billing usually have like 25% down at the beginning when your policy starts up. And then you have like 9 months of equal payments that you have to go through, right? That can be horrible in cash flow right now.
Actually, some people think they're on pay as you go, but if they're not with AP Indigo, I didn't realize that either. Like, well, I'm on pay as you go. I report my
self-reporting, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
Pay as you go is going to be tied directly to your payroll is the fundamental difference. So I like AP Indigo because we use QBO payroll, everything else, but you can do it in other platforms. It ties directly in, so it automatically knows what wages you paid during that period, and then will like remove just the premiums that are equal to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so this example, what we're looking at on the left-hand side, this is my fake policy quote, that it's a company that, again, they're doing painting basically. And in California, we have this weird thing where we have dual class codes. If you make less than $28, you're in one code. If you make more than 28, you're in a different code. So we just made up for a whole year, we figured to spend $120,000 on this one code. Next one down is $80,000, and these are in wages for people. And then you have clerical office at $45,000. So if we took each of these by the remuneration rate, we see what the total annual premium of just the rates would be at for $12,186. Now, when you have your quote, you're always going to have like an expense constant. That's their little piece of the pie that helps them, run this whole thing. And then there's an experience modifier as well, which if you have a lot of claims, if you get a lot of people getting hurt, your modifier goes up and it jacks up your price, as you can see.
Can you give us the short version of what a remuneration rate is? Because some people might not know what that is.
So remuneration rate has to do with, it's the percentage that's charged per $100 of wages earned or like wages paid. Mm-hmm. So as we look at the top one here, it's saying for every $100, you pay $7.86 towards workers' compensation. And they can go up to like $14, $15, percent.
Depending on yeah.
So to get our total, what would happen is we basically take the 120,000, divide that by 100, right? And then times that by 7.86, and that's how we get our annual premium portion of it. Obviously, depending on the different states, most states use the NCCI codes, which is the different workers' comp class codes, but there are certain states that do it differently. California's one, there's like 5 different ones. And these are always evaluated every year. There's different, actually in California, they actually review it twice a year to make sure that it's falling in line, because it's all based off the concept of what's the likelihood somebody's going to get hurt and that you're going to file a claim. So now basically every state has some form of workers' compensation requirement. Oh, I should say almost every state. There's 2 that don't require it necessarily. But the benefit of workers' comp insurance is somebody does get hurt, they can't sue you, right? They can't sue the business owner. There was a question I saw earlier today on Facebook, which was about Florida. And Linda, you may know for sure, otherwise I could pull it up. I do believe Florida is one of the states that will allow, you can usually with a business owner, you can exclude yourself. Any of the officers or owners of a company, you can exclude them from workers' compensation. So you don't have to pay a premium on their wages, but that means if they get hurt, they don't
Yeah.
get pulled from it.
It's like that in Rhode Island too, the same thing. And I think that might have changed. I'm not quite sure because I've not been in there for a while, but this is just some of the things that you think about, because there's been a lot of conversation on the news about the meat plants with all the people that got sick, because apparently they work right next to each other. So they got sick and now the meat plants are closed. But that's a case of if all these people got sick at work, right? That's workers' comp if they got sick. So now there's a whole nother layer to COVID because it's, and I know you did mention that on the video that some states like your state are.
Yeah, there's, I'll go back through it real quick here and show but I went through and researched like different states that are doing different things that all have to do with like first responders and frontline workers.
Right.
And whether they should be covered or not. And that becomes important because in most states, except for California so far, California is the only state that's actually claimed that COVID-19 claims will not impact a business's experience modification calculations. So that means next time you're re-upping, if you've had COVID claims, your modifier could go up big time.
I hope other states would take that. I mean, because it's not the employer's fault. Why? But I understand the insurance company's trying to recoup the money, right? That they're going to have to pay out for these cases. I mean, my sister's a CNA and she's twice now had to stay home because she didn't feel well. And because she's been exposed, they made her stay home for 2 weeks because of the fact that she was exposed to it.
But she's okay. Yes.
She's okay. Yeah, she's fine. She went back to work today, actually. So it's pretty cool.
So then other states like Kentucky, New York, as well as even Utah, there are many, many, many states that are all currently working towards adding in specific coverage for the first responders that will make a linkage to where if this is your job as a first responder and you become ill with COVID, you should still be eligible to get your payments very quickly. You should be covered. So they're enacting legislation to make sure people are protected, basically.
But the cool part that I was hoping you get to too, if you can slide over to where the new codes are, because that's because of this and watching your webinar, which I did. And I reached out to a client that I know, the one that I had talked to that said, if you don't, I knew he had sent his people home and that I thought they were filing for unemployment, which they did. He did get PPP money. He still can't open. Florida's not letting salons or anything like that open. So he's paying them, and it became a conversation on that. And then I said to him, but they're home, you're paying them for nothing. He said, yes, I want to keep my staff. So in that case, they're not working. So you can go into that a little bit because that was important. He didn't know about that. So
yeah, and we'll go through some of it as an example here, but basically what Linda's talking about is this still kind of varies from state to state to state. So it's not like it's a national thing. You have to check with your provider, but it's all going this direction. First and foremost, they're introducing a new class code 0012. 0012 is a class code that is, I'm paying my employees, but they are not doing any work. And it has a 0% remuneration rate. So it's a way to track the wages, but not be charged by it. You cannot flip-flop back and forth. It's you do it and you flip them over to that until they come back on. And it just helps you break out those wages. Now, the other one is actually reclassifying people over to 8810. And I'm going to show that in this example here, that like with these folks, if you have painters, well, maybe you don't have as much work, but you still want to be paying them. So you've made them go home and they're taking courses and certifications and they're doing administrative type duties. You can reclassify them to 8810 and look at the different rate, right? 7.86 versus 0.02.
Yeah, huge.
So, but I'll get into that in just a quick moment. So to explain the policy quote, we went through what the total policy premium is, okay? And it shows an example. I did this on purpose in January that if you generally have 25% down the first month, and then each month you're gonna have 9 months from there that you have equal payments through the whole thing, we get to our 13,654. So if you did the exact same thing, but you had a pay-as-you-go program instead, this is on the left and middle column, showing that they equal the same amount, what I did is November, December, January, February, usually are slower months. So I put it at 5%, but if you add the percentages up, it's 100% of what would be the expected labor.
Mhm.
Look at the cash flow difference that happens from this. Like, you don't think about it necessarily right away, but if this happened in January and you tossed out that $3,400, your
Yeah.
cash flow difference right away, $2,700 still in the bank by doing pay as you go.
Mhm.
February, 3,100. This is cumulative, okay? Then 2,900, and it starts to work its way down until you equal out to zero. But think about time-wise on this and when that cash would be hitting. So if you have somebody that in June is having to re-up, or July having to re-up, and if they're auto direct billing, it could cost you a lot of money. And you may not have that 25% right now because of everything that's going on.
Like a contractor that works like in Rhode Island, right? I've got some legacy clients that are in Rhode Island, contractor, and their policy used to would come due in April. And that's when he was just calling the guys back. He was doing quotes. He wasn't really pulling in any money because they hadn't started to work. And it was hard to cough up the big down payment, which is, the double payment. It's hard to come up with that money.
So then the next one on the right-hand side, this is actually showing what would happen. Let's take a look at the COVID world, right? So we've got our estimated wages just straight across so we can show the variation. But now let's imagine, post-COVID, we've got January, February, nothing, we didn't know what's going on. Everything's fine. So we still had the same 5%, right?
Mhm.
March hits. Now let's, in this scenario, we drop to 1% of what instead of the 10% because we slowed down. April, May, nobody's working, right? So nobody's going out. We put 0%, boom, boom. With this adjustment based on pay as you go, you end up spending, and I should say, then we kind of like we've ramped back up through the rest of the year. You end up spending, $8,800 less as a pay as you go. And you would have, in direct billing, you would have ultimately gotten that back when you do your audit and you see that the numbers were lower. But this is all about cash in the bank now.
Yeah.
Right. And then the last part of this is what you were talking about, which is that if you did a classification changing. So a lot of these numbers are the same across them on purpose to kind of have the continuity of it. But if we took a premium policy, we had 120,000 at the top. Let's say we dropped that to 90. So we, reduced it by 30. And then we had the second one of 80,000 drop to 60. And for each of those, it's because we added them into that 8810 class just by reclassifying people for like that 3-month period of time or so. This example showed a $3,300 reduction in the money that went out because you're able to reclassify and move people around.
Yeah.
So this, again, the goal of this is really just to kind of show people what could possibly be done as other things to be looking at to get money back in the bank.
Because we're looking to whatever we can find to help our clients. Had a little back and forth with one of our members, and it's the same thing. You kind of like, your heart's breaking for them. You want to find a way to help them. And this might be one of the ways you can reach out and just say, hey, and like the one thing about workers' comp, which we've said in many webinar, every state is different. It's not statewide, like this countrywide thing. You have to actually look, and AP Indigo has a great, I don't want to make this commercial for them, but AP Indigo does have a really great website with every single state. So if you want to look up your state rules, and they do have the pay as you go, and it's a great program, and it's something you can reach out to your clients, maybe even after this, if you want to help them save some money, because they have multiple places and they'll get you prices, different companies that they work with. But the pay as you go feature, it just seems more fair when you're doing the paying for workers' comp. It works on the wages, and you're not getting, a lot of times with the contractors, if they had a bad year, we get a big check back. Yay. But you overpaid. It's kind of like an income tax refund. You're just getting money back that you overpaid. So you just want to make sure that if you can help your clients, it's the most important thing.
So Joe was saying in the comments here that this may be one of those rare times that buying comp through your payroll provider may be beneficial. Having that connection, it definitely will. It's just more instantaneous, and as most of us being accountants, it makes our job a lot easier also, which I like. It just simplifies.
Especially at audit time.
I'm sorry?
At audit time, it makes your job a lot easier, you know?
Yeah, not to go on about workers' comp forever, but I've actually started putting together a presentation on, I've been going through, and as we do these different audits for different clients, I've been doing screenshots of them so I can, put a presentation together to show people what it takes or what's involved to do a workers' comp audit.
Mhm.
That stuff is fun. Nobody wants to do it. So I figure if we can at least educate people and make it a little bit easier on that side.
Yeah. We did have one question from a member that we want to delve into. I mean, she didn't get back with more information, but I think it might help. I'll share my screen now. So it was Christine Marie, and she wants a mentor, and she said she wants someone to reach out to. She's got a challenge she can't handle. She's got transactions showing up in the reconcile screen as unreconciled, and she's trying to help. She needs help applying payments to correct sales receipts and invoices. So basically, I was asking her, did you reconcile? And if you reconciled and then they're still there, then they're probably duplicates. But she said she has reconciled. So what do you think might be a reason why they have transactions showing up? I mean, obviously, the beginning balance is wrong, then maybe they became unreconciled somehow.
Yeah, I'm actually so impromptu. I'm pulling up QuickBooks online so we can kind of show it. But one of the things I will always do is I'll go into the reconciliation area and I will actually try to start a new reconciliation with the exact ending date as before and the same ending balance, and see what's still sitting and pending inside there at that time. So if I can share my screen now.
You can.
Pass the screen around, yay.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a great question because it happens, right? I mean, you can go in after you've been working on it with a client and you're like, oh, what happened here? Why are these all here? So another reason that can happen is the client, maybe the bank feed broke and then they turn the bank feed back on and went all the way back to the beginning. No, they never do that, right? And then bring in all the duplicates.
Yeah, bank feeds never break. But yeah, so this is fake. Sorry to interrupt you. Fake company file, fake data. Don't worry about anything I'm showing. If it looks like it's completely out of whack, it's because it's fake data and I'm just pushing stuff to it all the time.
Yeah.
So I will basically, this was not pre-planned. So what I would do is I'd come into here, I would see my last ending date, and I would change the information on this. Let's just actually go out this way. Go close out saving. The goal is if we see onesie twosie transactions that are just kind of chilling inside there, we're able to then do a quick search of the of those transactions and basically try to see if there's duplications of any of those that are still sitting inside there, right? Or if things got matched wrong, if stuff's in undeposited funds, so forth. And I'm trying to find an account that has
Transactions sitting there.
Yeah.
Totally unplanned. Facebook Live.
So 7058.12. And we'll go to 28. Yay, technology. Here we go.
Happens all the time.
All right.
Yeah, wondering if her transactions had matches to them. I mean, those are, which it can happen that they have matches if the client brought all the transactions in a second time. And I've had that happen where the credit card or something happened and they just reset it and pulled them all in a second time. But then again, that's duplicates. You just got to remove them.
So this is a horrible example, unfortunately, because there's so many transactions, but I will take the opportunity to kind of point some things out that when you're in this reconciliation window, there obviously you've got certain key things you can be looking at. So when you have these boxes here, this is telling you that it came through through the bank feed itself. So when you have something unique like this where it's all by itself, it immediately is one of those things you want to start to click into it and see what's going on, especially if you're consistently using the bank feeds all the time. That's a great place that you would find where there will be possibly duplications, where things would be pending. So what I would do is basically open this up and we would find an amount and do a search for that exact amount to see if what else pulls up. So let's do 445.50 basically, right? Duplicate the tab. I'm sure most people know this, but if I come up here, right click, go duplicate, Means I'm
Use
not
it
going to mess
all.
up what I'm doing here, and I can just go do a search and not have to go sourcing back through all the things again.
That's one of my favorite things to do. Sometimes I look up, I'm like, oh my God, do I have that many tabs open?
Yeah. So I do my search, I do the .50 or even a .00 on purpose so it knows that it's a dollar amount and not like a reference.
Mhm.
Since it only pulled up one item on this, it went straight to a bill payment.
Mhm.
This is showing the bill payment, shows the account. It's always possible that you could have things that got tagged into a wrong account as well.
That just happened to me today that the client called and it's not matching in the bank feed, the new client. And sure enough, it was in the wrong bank account. As soon as I showed her this exact trick and she's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then it matched.
It simplifies the process so much more.
Yep.
And then of course, like if it's brand spanking new, check your own opening balance equity. I think you already said that one, right? That
Yeah.
maybe the bank feed got disconnected, got reconnected, and it stuck something in. So you have this extra item there.
Yep.
You know, hopefully most people are, when they're doing deposits with multiple checks, they're actually creating that deposit so it matches with the bank feed also.
And that's usually another place that when you're looking at a file and you're doing like a file review, you can undeposited fund and you're like, oh my goodness, there's stuff in here from 2017. And then usually you have to go back and do some kind of cleanup. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Christine, happy to, of course. Glad we can help answer your question as well. Anybody else have any, somebody give me a hard one. Give me a really, really tough question. And that's not PPP related. We've got enough of that. Any tough questions specifically that people have or would like some guidance on or try to stump us with? Let's see.
Oh, if I knew that, I should have made something up.
So John put that there. Any other ones also in the group, Linda?
In the group, no, not really. I mean, we've had some, but it's been mostly recommendation for my trip mileage app was one. And I mean, MileIQ because it's baked into QuickBooks, and there's plenty of other ones out there too. Do you have any that you use, or is it MileIQ through T-Sheets?
Actually, so I've been using the QBO one that's inside the program, and I set this thing up on my phone a while back. I don't know, people may not have actually seen kind of how it works yet. It keeps changing. They keep like making improvements and changes to it. But literally, I set up on my phone the ability that it could just track all the time. And it made it really, really easy for me. Let's see here, 2019. And it literally will start tracking the different mileage each trip for me to where I can just come in and review what it is for or not. So I would come in, if I click on it, it actually will show like starting and ending points. You can label them. I wish it could memorize certain points. It'd be kind of cool. So it just kind of filled that in. And then you choose business versus personal, you know, so you can, it becomes a mileage tracker, which is kind of neat without having to do as much of the work.
Yeah.
It's done a pretty good job improving it. So once you add these in, you can have multiple vehicles as well. You can tag the vehicle in. You can, at the end of the year, put your mileage in for the vehicle itself. So you kind of get ideas for value of you know, the value of the vehicle. You can download the trips now is pretty new. And then what else? So I like this because if it's already in my QuickBooks, it's just kind of where I need it to be at.
Yeah.
Of course, with a lot of businesses, if you have, I'm not a tax professional, so I probably shouldn't comment on this one, but if you actually have a dedicated vehicle for work, in other words, you have your own personal vehicle that you use, your own vehicle for personal stuff, and it's truly dedicated that way, well, the mileage isn't quite as important. I don't know if you actually still have to do the mileage tracking if it's only for work. If you have to have the log. Maybe one of our CPA friends can fill us in on that part of it as well.
Yeah. We do actually have another question that came in about an hour ago from Alicia Cordell. And she says she has a client that uses an outside payroll service and then imports into QBO. During the import, when they're new payees, employees, it adds them as a vendor. He's looking to move the payroll back to in-house using QBO. Is there a way to change all of the employees that were set up as vendors to actual employees after activating payroll?
Oh boy.
No.
Okay.
In desktop, you could. I think
a couple things to unpack with that. So part of it is if we're talking about a transfer of payroll during the year, that's a bigger issue to it because you need to make sure that you're capturing all of the paychecks for that year per person, right?
So if you're going with QuickBooks Payroll and you're picking the core one, you're going to have to do the work or pay to have it done, which will tie that back together. But you will have to create what I've done. And I had a client that had the situation and they had all their employees as vendors and they started using QuickBooks Payroll. We had to change all the vendor names to be like Matthew Fulton-V for vendor. And then made it inactive. We made the employee name and then made the other one inactive. Or if they still wanted it, this company did some reimbursements and on the side, so they still wanted the vendor name. But that was the only way I could come up with changing it. She also said in another question related to her previous post, he uses a custom scheduling and time management system. Is it possible to import time into QBO? And if so, what format does it need to be coded to code it to the jobs in QBO? Here you go. This one's dished out for you because you're the T-Sheets guy.
So we do exactly this with one of our companies. It's a software development company. There's actually a white paper on it on Intuit's from the future that kind of discusses it. The software company created their own time tracking application, of course, make it easy. And they use it for all of their people. So what happens from that is we then get the export of all of those times, and we then create billable, in this scenario, we create billable expenses because the time being tracked they are vendors that we're paying out to. And we want to create those bills, but we pull the time in to tag it to projects and be able to create invoices off of it. The way we do this is it's much more advanced, so it's not a quick and easy type thing. We've developed a process we use with CData and Excel that we take all the information that's organized in a specific way for an Excel sheet. And then I created a template with a whole bunch of formulas that gets it ready to just kind of push the stuff right in as billable expenses. And then we're ready to go. So some of that can be done. There are a lot of different time tracking apps that integrate with QBO. So you'd be amazed, probably 65% of the time when I'm doing workflow design, just by looking at the actual app itself and what they connect to, we can almost always find a way to connect it, or we look at Zapier as a first attempt to do a soft integration before maybe doing full customized development or something. So I know that's not exactly the answer you're looking for, but reach out directly. I can kind of spend more time. We can look at what you got, and I can see how I can help you out on it for sure.
And did you have a video on? You have a video on how T-Sheets works, and there's a certification too. If you're a pro advisor, there's a certification on T-Sheets that kind of goes in depth. I mean, there's a lot of little certifications inside of QuickBooks Pro Advisor tab too. So it's worth checking out. There's a bookkeeping one. There's a few other ones. So.
Yeah. So on my YouTube channel, which self-promotion coming up right now.
It's Artisani Bookkeeping.
Right.
Oh, we get another question too from Christine. And she says, is there a way to attach a payment from a paid sales receipt to an invoice? The sales receipt was paid with a credit card and batched with other sales. Does this make sense?
Okay, so sounds like third-party applications being used or point of sale for collecting the money, Stripe, Square, something like that, most likely. If we're able to get some validation on that, would be great. If it's from that aspect, the question is going to be how the data gets pulled in, and then you would manually be linking it to an invoice itself. And so a good example of this being one of our clients is a window tinter. They, throughout this whole thing, they actually started running specials where you do a deposit and you get a discount on doing the window tint, and they had everybody pay through PayPal. And it was $100 deposits on every single one. So there's sales receipts created in PayPal or whatever it was for $100 each. Then it finally came time to open up and start doing this stuff. And what we did, I use CDAT again because it's just easy for me that way. We created received payments for each of the different customers and made it to where they basically had negative balances. So that way, when you created an invoice for them on that day, it was used as a deposit directly to it, and it made it to where that payment was linked directly to an invoice, and they only paid the remaining balance.
So, well,
So
Christine said it's QuickBooks payments. So if it's QuickBooks payments and you want to create, because you can get a receipt, if somebody paid an invoice in QuickBooks,
yeah.
you can print the receipt right out of that, or if,
Yeah, so
Mhm.
sales receipt, this is
So
where
you get a sales receipt and an invoice, they're two different ones, accounts receivable.
so sales receipt is getting paid that day, right?
Mhm.
So you did the thing, you get it paid, boom, done. Invoice, create the invoice, come back, pay later.
Mhm.
Complexity of this is when you're using Intuit Merchant Processes inside of QuickBooks Online, and it links the payment that you made. So like if there's an invoice and it links that payment to it to pull it in,
Mhm.
breaking that is tough.
Mhm.
You're actually, if you need, like if it was, there would be ways to do like change it to a credit memo or something possibly. Oh, there you go. If you changed an item on the sales receipt to become a credit memo, you could then have the money come through that way. You wouldn't break the link for the payment, and then a credit memo would be sitting on the customer's account to create an invoice and use it against it.
But if it's a payment on something from QuickBooks, so you sent out an invoice and you got paid by Intuit Merchant Services, you can print the receipt right out
Yes,
of QuickBooks,
maybe
right?
I misunderstood. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention.
Yeah, but also if you're using QuickBooks Online Advanced, this is one of the things that I love about QuickBooks Online Advanced with my clients. They got a workflow in there. So if I have one of the admin people receives a payment, automatically sends a receipt to the client, which is pretty cool. But you can just print you can print the receipt. There's a receipt that you could print the payment.
So I think I heard, do you mind asking the question again? Because I thought I heard something about a sales receipt and linking it to an invoice.
Yeah, So is there a way to attach a payment from a paid sales receipt to an invoice? And I don't know why you'd want to do that, because they're different transactions.
See what happens when you ask for hard questions.
Could we try to figure out what you're asking? Yeah.
Well, I definitely will say that probably need a little clarity onto it, but reach out and I can take a peek. The question becomes like if it's a sales receipt, if we're talking about something that was paid and they got the receipt,
Mhm.
if you're needing to use that money, like you gave them a sales receipt as if it was giving a deposit, maybe, and then now it's time for the actual invoice and you need to show that the deposit was there, that's where you would do kind of like a client retainer
Mhm.
or deposit type document, right?
Mhm.
If I go to my items list, products and services, this is why it's so like people, if you get the 5 for 5 deals and that kind of stuff, the reason to keep them is so you can build out scenarios and not have to worry about it just like this.
Okay, here's what she said. Because this member overpaid via sales receipt and wanted it applied to the invoice.
Okay. Interesting. So
How
I
do
would create a credit, the sales receipt if you're, because you don't want to, we don't want to change historical stuff, right? The thought
Mhm.
is if it's already happened, if it's a prior period, you wouldn't want to change that.
Yeah.
You would show, the invoice should theoretically show the correct amount, which would have been less than what they received. So they received more money. That extra, if you created that as a credit memo, right, would then be able to be available to use against an invoice.
Yep.
Of course, you could always do if they wanted the money back, you would have done a refund receipt. Would be the
Right. You would have, you would have refunded the money on the credit card. That's the only option. If they want to apply it to an invoice that's later, yeah, you're gonna have to do a credit memo. And I would put tons of notes to link everything back so that you know that that's all one transaction, because it's hard to do because it's different invoices and sales receipts, but it's really the only way to do it is the credit memo.
And just because I touched base on it real quickly, setting up like I like to do a retainer received item and a retainer used item personally.
too.
So I can see both of them. And if I'm pulling up different reporting, it's just, I think it's easier that way.
Even though they're the same, hitting the same account, I do the same exact thing because it's easier.
That's why I like to do it that way, because if you run a report by customer, sales by customer with the items and you filter down to these two, you can see who's used what deposits or retainers or not over time. And so the account we hit on the income side is customer retainers as an other current liability is what I usually set it as. In case people need that. So We got just a couple more moments left. We always try to be real respectful of the time as well. Any other questions, Linda?
I don't see any other ones. If anybody has any questions, if you guys like this show and enjoyed having us stump Matthew, good job, Christine.
I love it, yeah.
But yes, so if you guys have QuickBooks questions, if you'd like us to answer questions every week, let us know. But for sure, because we want to help everybody. That's the purpose of our group. And it's nice to see people helping one another. And Sandy says hi, and your mom is here. She's watching, and she said that she said that Lizzie says hi to Silas. So she's been on since Lizzie.
Most important thing in the world, family comes first always, guys.
Yeah, and Mother's Day is Sunday.
I
Yeah,
didn't get you anything yet, Mom. So,
still time.
I
time.
love the meme that was going around telling all the fathers, like, by the way, this year there will be no teachers creating some fancy little present for Mother's Day, so you better get on it, right? Like, yeah.
Well, my daughter says, because I can't go to the store, can I make a card like I did when I was 5? I'm like, absolutely, go for it. Send me a card like that. I don't care. And Greg said if he knew that he knew that we were going to be doing this topic, he would totally make a question that would be hard for you to answer. Stump Matthew.
I love it. So, I mean, honestly, one of the things when we first started QB Community Live, as a reminder for those who may not know, this got started because Linda and I were both in Intuit's community, and we were answering questions. For me, it was a way to kind of, if I was having a bad day, I'd go answer questions and it would make me feel better. We started working together on stuff, and we'd actually pitched Intuit on the concept of doing a live Q&A type thing inside their community. Fortunately, it didn't work out that way, and we started to actually just create little videos where we'd go in, we'd pick a question, we would talk about it real quick, and then record an answer and try to show how to do it, because all too often it's too hard to like talk accounting jargon and have people fully understand it. So
yeah, and we were answering them, and then we were answering the questions and putting them on the videos, and everybody seemed to be very happy to have the video answer, because we would actually go into our file and actually do the fix. So it's easier to understand than just the words. And your mom says every day is Mother's Day.
So, well, with that, I will wish everybody a very, very successful week, and I guess